Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Promised Neverland anime review. This one's going to be for episode 12, which is the, season 1 finale. It has also been confirmed just recently that we are getting a second season in 2020, so that's really good to hear that immediately the show is confirmed to be going on beyond where we are here, and that's nice to know straight away, given where this season ends, in that, as expected, we end with the escape having succeeded completely, but now, what have they gotten themselves into? What actually is out here? Will they be able to evade the search for them? And then even if they do manage to, get out of the immediate vicinity, what's kind of there for them? But that's the speculation going into the second season. What we're here to discuss, of course, is how they ended the first season. And this was, I think, a really well put together episode. A bunch of different flashbacks, kind of one, more kind of unexpected if you haven't read it in the manga already. But we start off with what, needed to be explained, and that is, okay, Phil and all the younger kids, why aren't they part of the escape? And then, because of that, how did this come about? Because Emma, for the entire series, since the escape has been, an idea, has always been, we have to take everyone with us. What changed? And that's what we basically get here. We get the explanation, the flashback to this very discussion, Emma discussing it with Dawn and Gilda, and ultimately Emma having to agree to the fact that, okay, yes, we have to use, a bit of everything. We are not just going to escape and leave the farm behind for good. Yes, we will, in the initial escape, leave the younger kids behind, but we'll come back for them. And that's the sort of change, the slight difference in kind of take that they do about it, and that Emma now going forward, has this kind of thing. She escapes, and all the older kids escape, but she also now is still kind of connected back there, and that she wants to go back for Phil and the others someday, knowing that they've got about 2 years, give or take, before anyone from the farm is going to be shipped out, because they only left the young kids there. And I think that's a good way to do it, of have Emma make this kind of sacrifice in a way. She has to make this happen, to make it so that Norman's plan isn't a failure, make some changes in her own ideals, but also, keep it in mind and just be realistic about it. And this feels more on par. It's still, idealistic Emma, in that she doesn't know what's going to happen next, and will she be in a position in the next 2 years to actually come back, and so on. What will develop in all of that time, but it fits perfectly her character that this is the case, and it fits what they've been setting up for most of the series, in that Emma has this kind of close connection with Phil. Phil is basically set up here as the leader, in a way, of the younger kids here. They only tell him of all the kind of 4 and below age kids that what's up with the house, just so they have someone kind of in the know about this, that they haven't completely left them. And I think that's interesting if they ever decide to cut back to the house and what's going on there, especially with what they did with Isabella, and the fact that Isabella knows that kind of Phil is sort of in on it a little bit. What exact approach do they take to this? Does suddenly everyone know, or what? And how does Isabella approach everything in the aftermath of this? But in terms of resolving, just okay, it's the 15 older kids who've escaped. This did that completely. So the second thing the episode had to tackle was, of course, how they were actually going to escape. The alarm does get sounded, so that it activates quicker than they expect. So how do they actually go about escaping? Do they go to the bridge or not? And no, it's actually revealed that Norman had actually decided that, okay, everyone would think if we escaped, we'll go for the bridge. That's the only way to get out. Instead, we'll go for this little bit of the cliff that sort of juts out just a little bit more, and do it there. And it's just revealed that in all the planning, while Isabella was watching basically Ray and Emma, everyone else was training for the kind of journey across this gap. Dawn especially becomes very important here by throwing the the line basically across the chasm and nailing the tree, and then they use kind of clothes hangers to kind of basically rappel across. So that was really, really cool to see. Very clever, and especially the fact that they had like planned like a second stage of it. It wasn't just one line, everyone gets across the one line. No, they had planned secondary lines as well that Dawn, when he goes across, would then kind of activate so that they get across even quicker. So it was so well thought out that like no one thought they'd make it across the cliff this way. And I thought this is where they played up Ray in the episode really well once again. Like he was in the last episode of just, he's in this shocked daze that like he's just going along with this plan, but like he's not saying much because he's just so amazed that the plan is executing in the way that it is. And he's kind of shocked that Emma would agree to not bring everyone with them, the cleverness of the plan, and the fact that especially as like he's about to cross over, that Norman came up with this without telling him, and that they managed to sort of trick Ray, who obviously Ray had kept his secret for so long, and he's suddenly tricked in the most important time. And it was really nice to see, and to finally have Ray, I suppose, snap out of that daze right when Emma was sort of kind of losing some of the kids on top of the wall. One of them begins to panic that she can't do it. He's shaking a lot. And so Ray picks her up and brings her across. And I thought that was a nice moment to just have like the one thing that kind of Emma struggles with here after doing everything so well. Ray steps back in and manages to make it work. And the timing of this was all working out really well, as Isabella, of course, makes her way to the wall, gets up on top. And just as Emma is the last one to cross over, Isabella is right there and doesn't move to stop her. And it's just, she can only watch on as Emma just flies across. And it's at that moment she basically admits defeat. And they do a very, very interesting thing here that, especially in the anime, it was kind of interesting that they were much more, I suppose, cautious in a way, or they held back a lot on giving us this information. In the manga, they were much more like clear earlier on about like initially, Isabella actually was in the house previously, and in terms of the whole the top girls can eventually become moms if they want. That was revealed about Isabella earlier on, and teases about little bits and pieces here. So it was interesting that the anime actually held back on most of that information to deliver it like all at once, right at this kind of point of failure here. And the backstory I thought was really, really well done, of just getting across, here is the most important person to Isabella during her time in the farm. This boy Leslie, and this music that he played that she really liked. And this is where I suppose her song comes from, and then they link it to the fact that Ray remembers basically everything, even when he was like not fully born yet. So he remembers this song, and this is what allows basically Ray and Isabella to realize that they're mother and child in the farm. And it just, that reveal just in and of itself, that's the note that I think Ray let Crone know about and stuff like that. Earlier on, that this was the reveal that was teased, and I was like, how does he know about this? So I was very, very impressed with the way that they did this. Of it suddenly changes the dynamic of like, okay, Ray is not just the one kid who sort of figured it out earlier on, and Isabella had this kind of a relationship with him as the guy who was working with her. The fact that that person who was willing to do that was also actually her son is so interesting, and just it makes you rethink all of their kind of interactions for the entire like series, basically, just because of this reveal and how it came out. And just the I suppose theme of Isabella's backstory of being her wanting to survive, her being so affected by Leslie being shipped off and dying, and that's why she decided to become a mom. It's that she took that deal when offered, rather than potentially trying to make an escape attempt, even though she, kind of like Norman and the others, was getting close to forming an escape attempt, was I think the idea they were getting across. But she decided that to, I suppose, make amends for, like, in a way, like, just Leslie dying so young, she decided that she would survive throughout everything, that she would, even if she has to work for them, survive and just be one of the ones that isn't eaten. And it's that interesting dynamic, and that's why, like, that reveal was so big, of just that the top girls are offered this role of mom, and why it was so significant when it was offered to Emma and she refused. It makes you then, like, be very more understanding and a little bit sympathetic towards, like, the likes of Sister Crone and Isabella now, knowing that they were basically in the same position as this. They just made a choice to survive rather than accept death. And given how young they are when they're offered it offered that deal, can you really be too angry at them for making that decision? And that's the thing you sort of think about throughout all of this, I think, and that's why this flashback with Isabella here worked so well, and her just accepting that, like, I suppose she's gonna get punished for this. Like, she's been the top mom for the entire, since she's been running the show. That's why her farm is the one that has the high quality product, and she's accepting that this is this massive mistake. The top farm has made the biggest mistake, and where is things going for her? And it was very telling that immediately she kind of let Emma go. Basically, she could have moved to maybe do something, but didn't. And then she actually hides the track. She helps them escape even further by taking down their kind of zip lines on the farm side of things, the ones that they wouldn't be able to do. They cut it off on their end, but they were still just hanging off the side of the farm. So she covers their tracks there, and goes as far as to actually just go to Phil, afterwards, and just be like, they all escaped safely. And in a way, she gets this sort of moment in the aftermath of all of this to just be a mother to the kids that are remaining, kind of knowing that things are going to be up in the air from here on out. And that's what it's kind of one of those things where, like, obviously we're going to be focusing on Emma and the rest of them and what they're doing escaped, and realistically the focus isn't going to go back to the farm. But the dynamic now in the farm is actually really, really interesting, because we know Isabella all the more now, and they still want to use that farm because obviously these are the highest potential kids. But where do they go from here is the real question. So and yeah, the escape on the other side, they just end with basically forest ahead of them. There's no clear, like, objective, but they're free, and there's something, I suppose, so hopeful about the fact that they kind of get to the next morning and it's a new day and they're free, and there's worry about, like, surviving, but it's not the worry that they had while they were still in the farm. And I think that's just a great way to end this arc of just, we've covered the escaping from the farm section of the story. Now we are covering the, what's out there section. They're free, but what have they gotten themselves into now? Is this going to be even worse, or what? Because now, like, they showed us a lot of demons obviously going to, like, basically try and find them. So what happens from here on out is the big question. And I think, once again, it's just an example of a finale episode, I think, done really, really well. And again, I'm so happy that they confirmed the second season, like, along with basically this final episode. So we weren't kind of wondering, will it continue, will it not? Obviously, we all know it's one of the more popular, like, manga series in, like, Shonen Jump, so it was going to have success. But getting it confirmed like this really kind of quickly, always a good sign to hear. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say here. I suppose some final thoughts on the overall season. I think while there was a couple of ups and downs, primarily I think in about the second quarter of the series, obviously it starts off really well. and then ends very well. The build up to the ending and the ending itself, it's definitely that kind of early middle-ish moment as we're getting towards the second half of the series, where it definitely like struggled a little bit while the escape was very much in the really, really early stages. And you know, the anime still had the issue of just like what seems to be the stubbornness of just, we will not do inner dialogue. We will not have characters present their thought process, because apparently we can't show that effectively, even though anime like Death Note has done it like to an amazing degree previously. So I hope they make a decision to kind of relax the way they go about doing that, and just be like, you can do inner monologues, inner dialogue when you need to, because it gets across the idea so much clearer, knowing what a character thinks, and it's not this thing where it's weird or anything like that. I think most people will prefer to get the information rather than just be left in the dark, and hope that the core portrayal is done well enough. So other than that, I like the animation. I thought they got the big moments right, and I think it'll just go from strength to strength from here as we get into some very interesting content in the kind of wilderness basically outside, in the world that they've just escaped into. So they're my thoughts on this final episode of The Promised Neverland Season 1. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.